who's it for? Who uses it? And actually, who cares? I used to go into my class and sit on the floor on the carpet and see what the children could see from their height. And that was absolutely fascinating.
Love it.
Interesting.
That makes my heart go, no, because that wasn't what the child wanted it to be.
You put that one up? That's rubbish. What about...
I have to think about how does it make you feel?
Yeah.
And if our environment's not making us feel very comfortable, how do those children feel?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tiny Chair Pod. We're back, bums in seats in the tiniest chairs possible. You know, a little sign of respect to all those EY educators around the world who have to sit in chairs far too small for them. And Julia, you know, how are you doing?
I am so good. I'm super excited to talk to Sue Allingham all about enabling environments, why we have the resources we do, why we have the furniture we do, and I can't wait to hear everything she has to
That's
say.
Dr. Sue to you.
Dr.
actually.
Sue, my apologies.
How could you
But
forget?
before we get into all of that, how are you?
Oh, good question. Well, I'm very excited about a few things. We've got these nice new stickers for our video viewers. You'll be able to see these for our non-video viewers. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Check us out on video, mate. Come on. And new cue cards.
Wow, look
They're
at these.
pretty special. And I'm going to be having a baby. That's also new. So new stickers, new cue cards, and I'm going to have a child for the first time. So I'm quite excited.
That's exciting.
It's exciting because I get to interview...
Probably should have led with
Probably
that
should
one,
have
yeah.
led. Suvi, my partner will be disappointed that I led with the stickers.
Yeah, the stickers are great though.
But it's good, you know, we get to talk to all these early years experts on the podcast, and now I can finally get something out of it. I can get some good advice.
Yeah, doing it as a job and being paid for it is terrible. But now you can actually put it into practice.
Put it into practice.
Amazing.
So, without further ado, should we get on to chatting to Sue?
Without further ado, let's talk to Sue. Amazing. So, on this episode of the Tiny Chair podcast, we are talking about environments. Who gets to decide what the environment looks like, what it smells like, what it sounds like? Why do we have certain resources? Why do we have certain furniture? And why are the chairs always so small?
Well, I guess we know that last one, right?
Nope, that's a mystery.
Okay.
Luckily, though... Oh, go on.
Maybe Sue can help us solve that one.
I think she can. She's about to come in. Go on.
No, the chairs are so small because of Maria Montessori.
Okay, we have to dig into that.
Okay,
That's
go
good
on, go on,
inside
go
a tiny chair. All right,
Go
but
on.
we've broken the fourth wall, and Sue has already introduced herself, but I'm going to do a little introduction
go
to
on,
Sue,
go on,
so
go
those
on.
of you who don't know her. So for those of you who have somehow not come across Sue's work, Dr. Sue Allingham is an early years consultant, author, and trainer with over 3 decades of experience in early childhood education. And in case I didn't put enough emphasis on that, Dr. Sue has a doctorate in early childhood education from Sheffield University, do they say alma mater? Something like that. Where I used to go as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we can dig into that too, Sue. So Sue has been a teacher and early years coordinator, a senior early years lead, local authority special early years advisor. She's been trained and accredited in the BrainSET approach and has achieved a level 2 award in an introduction to neuroscience in the early years. She has written books. She's been on the editorial board of Early Years Educator for many years, and that is not all. She's also a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy and a long-serving member of TACTYC, where she's a trustee. And I must say, most importantly, I'm very lucky to consider Sue a good friend and one of the very first people I actually met in early years, although she does occasionally say we're not friends when I don't talk to her for a few months. She's guided me through the amazing sector and is still the only person who gets to have her merch on my backpack. That's a little hot fact. So we are absolutely delighted to have you on the podcast, Dr. Sue Allingham.
Welcome, Sue.
I don't quite know how to follow that. Can I ask what I'm a senior fellow of? Because I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh, well, the World Wide Web, clearly.
A senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy.
Well, that's news to me.
Oh, nice. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Sue.
We're very pleased to announce that, Sue.
I'd like to know what that is now, please, and do I get paid for it?
Oh, I hope so.
I hope the rest of our facts were correct, other than that
Yeah,
one.
I think so.
Okay, so it's just interesting.
We'll look into that. There's been a stumble in the research process.
I'm going to fire the researchers.
All right, Julia, over to you to kick us off.
Do you know what? I want to hear about the tiny chairs with Maria Montessori
Yeah,
first.
good
Can we do
point.
that first?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, actually, that's not that hard to answer, really. It was Maria Montessori that thought about having child-sized things rather than
Really?
parking. Actually, that's quite an interesting metaphor. Parking small children in adult-decided environments. There you go.
Wow. What a start to our wonderful chat about
Yeah.
enabling
A
environments.
completely random start. And she realised that having child-sized furniture was much more appropriate for smaller children. So half the time, I don't think people even realise that without Maria Montessori, we wouldn't have the environments that we have.
Wow. They'd just be children existing in the adult environment with things above their eye levels. Wow.
I love
so we
that.
have Maria Montessori to thank for these things we're sat on right now.
Shout
Are
out
you sitting
Maria.
in tiny chairs now?
We are. We're always sitting on tiny chairs for the love of our, or it's like dislike of our backs and hips. But,
Yeah.
you know, anything for a bit.
Yeah.
All right, Julie, over to you.
Yeah, we've already warmed up slightly, but I would love to do another little warm-up exercise. Now, usually, if you've ever seen the podcast before, we start it with an ick, so something that our guest dislikes about the early years. However, I would like to ask you something different, and I would like to ask you, if you were to host a dinner party and you could invite either Loris Malaguzzi or Friedrich Fröbel, who would it be and why?
Do I have to choose between the two?
I'm afraid you do.
Yeah, only one.
Oh, that's horrid. I think I would probably have Malaguzzi because I quote him the most. Oh, this is going to hurt Frobelians because you see, I'd like Frobelian
crumbs.
Frobel there as well. This is really tricky.
Who do you think's going to be the most fun at the dinner party? I guess that's the way of.
That's hard too.
Yeah, professionalism aside, who's gonna be the nicest? Who's gonna compliment your chicken? Who's
Yeah,
gonna
good point.
bring a nice bottle of wine with them?
Yeah.
Well, at my house it'll be takeaway anyway.
I guess Frobel would have some good gifts, wouldn't he? That's a good early years joke.
And also, he'd have some neat tips for the garden, wouldn't he?
That's true. Yeah, what value are
And
they
then you
adding?
see, Malaguzzi is very creative.
I'm gonna press you, Sue. I'm gonna make you're gonna have to choose.
Can I have two dinner parties and have Malaguzzi to the first one and Frobel to the second one?
What do you think? Should we allow it?
We'll allow it, just in the
All right,
name
let's
of
allow
moving
it.
on
Fine.
with the podcast. Off the back of that first dinner party question, we're going to go into our quick fire round, which we always start with, which is quick fire questions to get you started and get people to know you a little better. And I want to start by asking you a little bit about the topic of today, which is when you walk into a setting for the first time, what's the first thing you normally notice?
Children. Always the children. Because, and it won't surprise you to know this, Matt, because this is one of the first things you and I did, I want to see how they're involved in what they're doing and how happy they are. Then the second thing is, what does the environment look like? Because how the children are is often a good indicator of what the environment's doing to them.
It's very true. It's very true.
Wonderful. Great answer. Love that.
Is it me?
It's you.
Go on. What's the best part of your job?
Oh, wow. There are so many best parts. Obviously, talking to people like you is one of the best parts.
Well,
That's
How could I
nice.
not say that? I absolutely love being in rooms with children, whether it be a playgroup, a nursery, a school. I love working with adults. I love the work I do in the schools that I'm doing at the moment. Love the fact that I get to go abroad. There are lots of best parts.
what's the work you're doing at the moment? Can we dip into that?
Oh, that's some BrainSET work and bits of other bits and pieces.
Lovely.
You mentioned that, I think, in the intro, didn't you?
That was one of the bits we got right. In
yeah,
the
I was going to
intro,
say, half of it was just lies. So I'm glad we.
I thought, is there something I can't remember I did? Somebody might have accredited me with something and not bothered to tell me.
That's nice. If you've got so many accreditations, you're just getting them without even
maybe
being
that's
told.
it.
Yeah.
Oh well, fellow of this, trustee of that.
I'm actually poet laureate as well, but I haven't told you. No, I'm not.
We'll keep it a secret. It's fine.
Yeah, wait till they announce it. What is the BrainSET work? Well, you mentioned it. The lovely Dr. Catherine Murray. You've come across Cathy, I think.
Believe so? Yeah.
It might be worth you interviewing her. She's in Australia, mind.
Oh, nice. We
Well,
can
Crumbs
stay
will
up
have
late.
to stay up late or get up early. Yeah.
Yeah, either or. She does both. I first met the lovely Cathy via a Zoom connection in the first lockdown.
Wow.
And we were both contacted by an Indian organisation called Early Childhood Development Forum, ECDF. We hadn't ever met each other.
We love an algorithm in an algorithm. What are they called?
Acronym?
An acronym. We love an acronym in early years, don't we?
How early is it over with?
Clearly, I know.
Basically, they'd connected us because they found us online, and they held a meeting where they asked us to be part of their organisation as well. So you didn't mention I'm part of that, but you probably didn't know. Anyway, Cathy and I realised through several Zoom meetings, we got asked to speak at a couple of online events, etc., that we both had something in common. And we started WhatsApping each other, as you do.
Yeah.
I then found out a lot more about Kathy, and Kathy's developed this approach called BrainSET, and the SET stands for Safety, Emotions and Thinking.
Interesting.
And it's about developing emotionally supportive environments for children. And of course, as you two know, that's always been my reason for being underpinning everything with the Louvin Skull work and everything. So we realised it was like two worlds colliding. And since then, we first met the year before last when we actually went to India to work with the ECDF. So we first met in Delhi. Then the second time we met, we were working together in Athens.
Lovely.
And then Kathy was over here staying with me a year ago. And we did some work over here. So we've actually met several times in real life now. But she trained me in her approach. So now I am she calls me her senior trainer for BrainSET approach in this country.
Oh, another job title that we could be putting on. Yeah. It's
Hey, you read it out. You read it out.
We did read it out. We did. You're right.
So basically, a set of academies in Yorkshire picked up the idea and ran with it. And so I've now got a set of schools up in Yorkshire that this is now our second year working together.
Could you give us a quick rundown on the approach in very brief terms?
It's about how we create environments for children that support their brain development. Oh, you can't see it, I don't think. Behind me on there is a brain. Not literally in the glass jar.
That would be cool.
Is it hydrochloric acid or something you put them? I don't know.
I don't know.
Never
Sue.
preserved the brain before,
Yeah.
Sue.
I put mine in every morning and screw it back in. It's about how children feel emotionally safe in an environment in order to be able to be the best possible thinkers that they can. So safety, emotions, thinking. And how we create those environments in order to help that. It's too much to go into just for this short bit. People can always contact me, of course. There are sort of set trainings that Kathy has developed and ways of looking at things and matrices that you can look at. That makes me think of red pills and blue pills, is it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So nice. But then that's our little introduction to the matrix of BrainSET. I'm ready. Over to you, Julia.
When was the last time you felt inspired?
Oh, well, Catherine obviously inspired me.
That's so nice.
I get inspired whenever I work with a group of adults, actually. Even though I felt poorly last week at the big day out, some people said some things to me that day and subsequently, which really inspired me. People messaged me afterwards and said nice things. And that makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
Yep.
I love that.
My granddaughter inspires me all the time. I was with her on Saturday. I'm with her again tomorrow, in fact. She's nearly 3.
Oh, it's such a fun age.
Oh, she's edible. But she thinks she's 18. And she is just hysterical. And she says such astounding things to me. So she inspires me to think differently about things as well.
I love that.
For example, she was eating her dinner on Saturday evening. And she didn't really want to eat her broccoli.
We've all been there.
Oh, yeah. Every day.
She said her daddy, my eldest son, hadn't cooked it properly. Well, I had some and it was fine. But anyway, and I said to her, oh, it's good for you. And she just looked at me and she said, it's got vitamins in it. And I thought, you're not 3 yet.
That is amazing.
I mean,
it's amazing when
she's
they get
right.
to that age, isn't it, where they just start coming out with these sort of quasi-philosophical statements. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. All right, then. I think last one before we move on to our environments chat. You get to add a new area of learning to the EYFS. What are you picking?
Am I allowed to nick Ben Kingston Hughes' one?
Oh, I don't think he's not here to.
We
He's
won't
not
tell
here
him.
to tell
Yeah,
you
it's
no.
fine.
Yeah.
Can I put joy then?
Oh,
I love that.
Ben talks about joy as being the 4th characteristic of effective learning, and he's not wrong.
Yeah. Wow.
And if I were to add another one, controversially in some people's eyes, I'd say play.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? We talk about this quite often. You know, what does play mean to people? Does play convey the right amount of value and learning that's actually going on? And where does joy fit in with that? Where does happiness, is it worth doing things in our settings simply because they're fun? Or does it always have to be like, well, it links to this area of the UIFS and does this and that and,
If you can't have fun when you're between the ages of birth, and I would argue 7 and higher, what can you do?
Now, I get to occasionally have fun in my real adult job, so I think it's only fair that the 3-year-olds get to have fun as well.
Wait till you have your little one.
I know. Yeah. Hot news on the back. I'm going to be a father very soon, and I got to tell you about
sorry,
it the
I
other
shouldn't
day.
have said that.
No, you're good. It's going to be in the intro as well. So I'm definitely going to be asking you for advice later on, especially if you're back at that age again with the granddaughter, Sue. It means you've definitely thinking about these things.
I don't intend to have any more, but it's okay with you.
But then let's get into it. So
Let's do it.
I guess as a sort of a starting point to talking about the environment, let's go right back to basics. What do we even mean when we're talking about the environment in early years? When you're sort of introducing thinking about environments to maybe a younger practitioner or educator for the first time, how do you always introduce them to the kind of very concept of an environment and what it's there for?
That's a really interesting one, and that is possibly why I would have to err on the side of having Malaguzzi as my dinner guest.
Nice. We finally got you to an answer. I like it.
Because he talks of the environment as being the third teacher. First teacher being the family, the second teacher being the peer and the peers of the child and all the people around them, and the third one being the environment. Because the environment teaches the child such a lot of stuff. Stuff isn't a very professional word, but you know what I mean. And that kind of ticks in with the BrainSET theory as well about, do I feel safe in here? Can my brain relax and work properly in here? Or am I in fight and flight mode?
Yeah, wonderful.
Talking about the sort of explosion where your brain should be like that, but it goes manic like that. When I'm doing BrainSET training, I do that so often my hand hurts.
Good training. You're going to have forearms like Popeye by the end. Yeah.
That's amygdala hijack stuff, right? Bing! Yeah, I think I'd have to err on the side of Malaguzzi, and I did quote him actually on my Big Day Out speech. Because it's about what does your environment, and that means anything. That means the emotional environment, how you are with the children. It also means the physical environment of what does the room, the outdoors, the entrance hall, the door, what does it all say? What messages are being given? I suspect we all as adults can think of times where we go to visit somewhere and the outside is vaguely intimidating and we think, oh, I'm not sure about this. But because we're grown-ups, we have that life experience that we can, by and large, take a deep breath and think, no, I've got to do this. And you go in. Sometimes I visit nurseries and I can't work out how to get in the door.
They are getting more and more complicated, aren't they?
They really are. Or I can get into the car park if there is one through the buzzer there, but I can't work out how to get from my car to the front office. So it's all that kind of thing. So I think I'd have to err with Malaguzzi, and if I'm starting environment training with anybody, I have to think about how does it make you feel.
Start with the emotions.
Because we have feelings too. And if our environment's not making us feel very comfortable, how do those children feel? And you know that absolute classic one, which I used to do years ago, before I knew what I know now. I used to go into my class and sit on the floor on the carpet and see what the children could see from their height.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And that was absolutely fascinating.
We've been talking about that a lot recently. We got to visit some nurseries,
Yep.
and one of them was the wonderful Hopes and Dreams in like near Angel, actually, near where we were the other day for the Nursery World Big Day Out. And I think one of the really interesting things they'd done was looking at like the board displays, for example. Like, is this for the parents or is it for the children? Well, it should be for the children. It's their work, so let's make sure they're able to see it. And I think that intentionality is such a key part of how you think about your environment.
And actually, not only can they see it, but did they decide what was going to go there?
That sort of thing. You put that one up. That's rubbish. What about...
Well, quite. And actually, yeah, and the worst times are when you see notice boards and work on the walls that has been outlined or cut out by the adults.
Why?
Oh, we got an early years ick in.
Yeah, that's a good early years
I love that, yeah.
That is an early years icky. That makes my heart go, no, because that wasn't what the child wanted it to be.
Something you said there a second ago about when you come to an environment that gives you a certain impression, like does it feel intimidating? And those are skills actually that we want to have, right? Because there are certain environments that we should not want to go into, like, you know, those electricity substations that look absolutely terrifying. You know, obviously they look horrible. You shouldn't want to go in.
Fear of death thing on the.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's sort of it's a skill that you need to be able to read your environment and interpret that information and know whether you're safe or not. And so those signals that we send to children, obviously that has to be consistent with, well, we want them to be safe here, so it should be sending those signals of safety.
And then maybe sometimes it is maybe not being afraid, I guess, of having some spaces in the setting that are not intended for the children, and how do we think about making those welcoming versus not welcoming?
Yeah, what's the differentiation there?
Very interesting, yeah.
Like the kitchen area in a nursery or something that might not be the best place for a child to be. I think a really key point of all of this is, can a child walk into an environment and think, it's good, they know me here?
That's literally the next question, Sue. How did you do that? That's phenomenal.
Mind reading being another one of my skills that Matt didn't list.
Well, the next question literally is, you know, what are the things that we can use to indicate to children that they're welcome, or what things do you, as a consultant when you're going into settings, notice that lets you know that the children are welcomed and included there?
If the children are happy and joyful and don't skirt me like I'm some alien that's dropped in from outer space, and that has happened to me before.
Oh dear.
If they all want to pile in on top of me and say, who are you, why are you here, can you read me a story, see my picture, let me show you this, that's wonderful. I know then that the adults have created an ambience of comfort. That was a good word, wasn't it? You didn't miss
Ambiance
that.
of comfort.
Ambiance of comfort.
And that the adults are relaxed and comfortable. I have been into environments where, because I always sit on the floor, if possible, I go in and sit down on the floor and not make myself, you know, obvious. So if the children all land on me, that's fabulous. If they all skirt me and stare at me and think, oh, what's she doing in here? I don't like that very much. And if I can go into a room and just, let's forget about the environment for a bit. If the children are happy and friendly and joyous, that's the main point. If I can see around the environment that the adults have made it representational of the children, that there are children's, you know, the children peg up their own pictures when they've done them, and there's random bits of stuff on washing lines that they've pegged up, or family photos, and this is my house, and that kind of thing, real life stuff. That kind of thing makes me feel comfortable and happy, and I kind of get straight away, without asking the question, that the adults know the children. It's that whole key person philosophy of the child is kept in mind. So a child will come in perhaps one day feeling really sad, and an adult will notice. Actually, that's what Teddy Edwards' all about behind me. He used to be in my reception classes for years, and he was like their friend.
Who they could confide in, sort of.
Yeah, exactly that.
I don't know. Can you show us Teddy Edward? Is he available?
For the video viewers.
For the people, for the listeners.
Now that's
he's a
bear.
very beautiful looking brown tan coloured teddy bear, very traditional.
Yeah.
Teddy
Large
bear.
as well. I'm sure he'd outsize some of the children in your reception class.
Well, he's not that big.
Good for a cuddle, though.
Great for a cuddle.
He went home every night with a different child. You know, the classic bear diary type thingy? He's going to sit there now for the rest of the podcast.
That's good.
He's a bit floppy in his old age, aren't we all? I mean, he's got his own PE kit, his own lunchbox, his own book folder, his own backpack,
that's so sweet.
pyjamas, toothbrush. He'd go home every night with a different child, and he'd come back with no end of new things.
I love this phrase. I throw it around quite a lot. Like a cliche is just wisdom with a PR problem. You can say the same things about because it's like such a traditional idea, the kind of Teddy going home concept, but it's an old idea because it's such a good idea, because it's such an accessible way to make children feel comfortable with bringing their home environment into the setting and talking about it.
Well, do you know how interesting that is? Because it's become quite controversial these days.
Is that right? Interesting. Tell me more.
Because it's suddenly become, and I've read this, it doesn't happen so much now, so maybe people have dumped the idea, but it's got to the point where people were saying it was a one-upmanship thing. Because, you know, I mean, back in the day when Teddy Edward was part of my class, we didn't have digital photographs, we didn't have computers, because I am that old.
Sorry about that. Family's responsible a little bit for that one coming in.
Oh, the digitisation, yeah.
No, the digital pictures.
So back in the day when Teddy Edward used to go home with children, and I've still got all his diaries, it would be Polaroid photographs. Or we'd have to wait for the photos to be developed to come back to us.
Right.
And it wasn't like one-upmanship in those days. It was like, nice pictures of Teddy Edward having dinner with the family and that kind of thing. Or going to a restaurant sometimes. Now, apparently, people don't like it because it becomes, look, Teddy Edward came on a plane to Barbados with us. And
Yeah.
an instant photo.
Teddy Edward's on his private jet, that sort of thing, yeah. Interesting. But maybe that's kind of like the one a day concept is quite nice because it's only what you're
Only
up to that
overnight,
evening
yeah.
rather than going away on holiday and so on.
Exactly.
That's super
It's not
interesting.
one-upmanship anymore.
To actually elaborate on that a little bit, when children are in their enabling environment, what are some things that the children themselves are looking for as indicators to know that they belong?
The whole thing with an environment is in modern day language. Again, I didn't have these jargon words back in the day. But that whole thing about continuous provision. People make that so complicated. We didn't have that language back in my day. We just have things that were always there.
Yeah.
If you change your continuous provision every week, which some people suggest they do, that isn't secure for the children. That's not continuity. That flies in the face of continuous
Discontinuous provision, yeah.
Exactly.
Occasional provision.
So if you are like, and we'll be able to, Matt has this yet to come, but we will be able to reflect on children who like to know that something's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Like the teddy they go to bed with or something like that is always going to be there. And if it's lost, it's like, ah! How many times do you have to have duplicate teddy bears just in case one's in the washing machine? Small tip for later, Matt.
Good to know.
They know, though, this is the problem. They know it's not the right one. Anyway, I learned this a long time ago in my own classroom before I knew all of what I know now, that you do not change your home corner overnight into something else.
Interesting.
We did, myself and Julie, my wonderful TA, she's just retired actually, decided that we were going to change the home corner into a library overnight while the children had gone home.
Right.
And we set up a mum, a lovely lady called Angela, to come and be our librarian the next morning. So she could sit in there and be the, official librarian, whatever. And of course the children knew Angela, so that was fine. So when they came in the morning, they went straight over to chat to her in the home corner because they knew her. What we then noticed was that we put all the home corner bits and pieces away in the shed outside, and the children were gradually bringing bits of the home corner back in and putting them in the book corner.
Amazing.
Massive message of don't mess with our home corner.
But also the kind of trust that they knew it was their space to some degree and not.
And that's a really valid point, actually, because after that, not only did we keep the home corner the same by and large, we had an old Victorian classroom, so it was just a square really with no interesting bits and not very big. If we did think it needed a change, we sat the entire class down with scraps of paper, flip chart paper in front of them and said, what do you want to be in that corner now? And we did it together.
I love also the reflection of, and I don't know if it's something, I think sometimes like you might call it a failure or a mistake. Like we change our environments all the time. How do you make sure that you have a safe space with your staff where they're comfortable, that really, really good idea that they'd read online somewhere or really wanted to do, that then they actually make sure that the children engage with it in the right way and that they're comfortable saying, look, I know I was really advocating for XYZ, but I can see it's not working. We need to either change it back or think of something new. Like
that's an interesting use of words there. In how do we make sure they engage with it in the right way? Well, who decides what's the right way?
Yeah, sure.
I think it was Yandu Bill years ago. I heard him talking about children in the Hutton corner, and the teacher in this scenario he outlined noticed that one of the children was always the dog in the family. And the teacher was quite concerned that this child was always the dog, and they thought this was an issue and they needed to do something about it. Until they actually watched what was happening. And the child involved chose to be the dog because the dog was the one that organised the family, so to speak.
A sheepdog just herding them.
Like a sheepdog, I don't know. And that's a bit like, The boy who would be a helicopter. So she writes about a student pointing something out to her. She thought a particular child in her class was disruptive and a problem until the student had taken some time to notice what this child was actually doing. And they weren't disruptive and a problem at all. They were just organising things. So it's about, so who decides what's right?
Yeah, I love that.
And there's the classic example, and I still see it, on the role play corner, whatever it may be, it says only 4 children or 4 children only. I mean, I've got 4 children and a mum and dad. That's 6 children in this, 6 people in this family. If 6 people or 8 people or 10 people live in your house, and on the home corner it says 4 children only, how do you do that?
And I love the idea. I think there's a common theme throughout everything you've said so far is it's so easy to get bogged down in making the environment aesthetic or look good when it's empty or all this stuff. But actually, I think your point of like, it always has to start with the child and how they're actually engaging with the setting. That's how you judge it.
The theme in all of those is that it just took somebody to notice what was happening. So the author noticing, or the child rather, noticing about the boy who was just organising, or about Jan Dubiel's example where the teacher realised, oh, actually, this child loves being the dog and he's the star of the show and he's happy. And so it's that time to really notice what's happening rather than putting our own judgment on it.
You probably both know I talk a lot about assumptions. If we feel uncomfortable with something, we assume that the children do too.
Very much so. But I think a nice question related to the boy who would be a helicopter, I think, is essentially around how you balance the different needs of different children within an environment. So a classic example would be that child who wants a lot of things going on and chaos and lots of bright colours and vividness and so on. And then I think about the child who needs a much more calm and peaceful environment. It's a little bit like at my house, actually. My partner Suvi likes a nice peaceful environment, and I tend to like lots of knickknacks around. She's very much won that argument.
My lovely daughter-in-law comes around sometimes, and you can't obviously see my family room in the kitchen area. I have a lot of pictures and plates and things hanging up and little tiles and she'll say, don't think you need any more in here, do you? But I do, because there's little gaps left.
Can resonate with that. But I guess in the nursery context, how do you think about helping educators and helping staff to balance the needs of those quite often almost conflicting seeming needs in an environment of different children?
I think the over-colourful one is quite easy to address. Being a migraine sufferer, sometimes I walk into a room and I want to shut my eyes because it's too much. And it's dazzling and it's distracting. And I can't quote directly names and references, but there is, I think a lot of it's on the Harvard site, the developing...
Yeah, Centre for the Developing Child,
There's a lot of stuff on there about distractions and environments and how children's eyes get taken to other things and then they're not, I'm going to say they're not listening, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not engaged and involved.
It reminds me a little bit of when I'm working with some of the people at Family on their slideshow presentations, and I would say the eyes always win, right? And they're not listening to you if you put loads of stuff on there.
It's like too many words on a PowerPoint slide, that kind of thing.
I think a fascinating thing is, though, it goes back to noticing. Because I don't know about all of you, but I get terrible environment blindness. So, like, my desk will be an absolute mess, but I'm good at blocking all of that out, so I won't notice it as much. So for somebody else with fresh eyes coming in, will look at that and be like, well, this is outrageous. What are you doing here? And then...
You can't see the rest of my office just as well.
But it's the same in a classroom. If you're a teacher and you go into the room every day, you're used to having the alphabet on that wall and the numbers up there and the days of the week over there and the months over there and everything is like visually very noisy. But if you're an adult and you're good and you've trained yourself to get rid of that visual noise, it does sometimes just take that conscious noticing or all those fresh eyes to come in and be like, my goodness, this is an onslaught of things to look at.
And who's it for? There's all those what, why, how questions going on. You talk about the alphabet, the numbers, the weather, the days, the blah, the blah, the blah. Who's it for? Who uses it? And actually, who cares? It's wallpaper and you don't notice it anymore. How much nicer to have, and I don't say no to colours, I'm not necessarily going all Hessian and beige, although that is quite attractive if it's kept tidy. It will fray and go messy. Whatever it is, as long as it's kept nice and updated and relevant, and the children know what it's for, that's the important bit. But if it's just so much peripheral noise, why? And the biggest one, I mean, I showed this picture last week, and it's a library slide, and I don't know where it came from. Interactive whiteboards are not my favourite thing in early years rooms, but in this particular slide that I showed last week, there's the interactive whiteboard, and then above it, there's a laminated alphabet of capital letters. Now, where do those children go? They have to do that to see the laminated alphabet. Laminates catch the light. So from a low level, you look up, you can't actually see what those letters are because they're reflecting.
Goes back to your sitting on the carpet point.
Oh,
I remember the first person who said that to me about environments, of just like, the first thing to do is to get on the floor.
yeah.
Because it's all about, and I think that's the one thing that I always think about. And you do see it in nurseries where you can see no one's got on the floor here in a while and
also,
looked up.
would you want to? Because some settings and schools and nurseries, the floor is filthy and the carpets are...
It's not just visually as well, though, because I'm very, like, sensorially inclined, especially in regards to smells, and often you'll sit down on the carpet and the cushions have a little waft to them, or it smells a bit feety, or you can smell the nappy bin, or you can smell the normal bin, or the food bin, which you couldn't
smell
when you were up at adult height. And so there's so many different things that then affect the airflow. Are the windows open at the top where you've got a lovely airflow around everybody's adults' heads, but it's actually quite stuffy down below? There's so much.
Even sit on the floor and close your eyes.
Oh God, smells. I'm like you. I can't deal with some smells. High perfumes and air fresheners and things like that I can't cope with. Windows is a really interesting point. Please don't stick things all over windows. Because apart from the fact that from the outside they look awful because you've got all this blue tack and masking tape and that just looks dreadful for anyone who's standing on the outside. From the inside, where's the natural light gone? Windows are not for sticking things on.
Nice.
The only thing that is potentially useful on a window is by the main door, and it's a notice for the parents. That's different, especially in classrooms, and I've been in several, where there are windows between the classrooms. So that if you're in the classroom, the other side of the stuck-on stuff, all you've got is the blue tack and the tacky stuff. And that's not pretty.
Oh, Matt.
Julia, what's up?
I am feeling a little bit creatively challenged. Every week we have to talk about our sponsor, Family. I just don't know what to say about it this time.
Well, how about this time? Instead of advertising the world's leading early childhood platform, we can advertise the world's best dog.
No, I think we have to talk about Family.
Come on, Bean.
They are the sponsor.
Come on.
Wait.
Look, I got one right here.
Why is your dog here? Why is your dog in the studio? Why do we have a dog in the studio?
Well, because it's fun to advertise early childhood platforms, but why not advertise little puppies?
Okay, she's very cute, but I think we should get on to the sponsor. So the thing about
dogs.
The thing about Family.
No, dogs.
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 On with the podcast?
On with the podcast. Ruff, ruff. We're almost out of time for our little enabling environment section, but I have one more thing that I definitely want to ask.
Go on.
I loved your last question here, Julia, you prepared, which is like, what are your feelings around having specific areas of a setting for specific areas of learning, maybe a writing area or a maths area, for example? What's your take on that and how it can be done well or not well?
Again, this is something that takes me right back to when I was classroom-based all those hundreds of years ago. And we did have a maths area and a book area and a this area and a that area. Yes, it's absolutely fine as long as you don't mind things being transported around. Because you need to have space. And the thing that I think people get this it's a bit like use of themes and topics. There is no absolute no, but it's the what, why and how. What are we doing this for? Why is it important? How is it going to work? If you've got a maths area, it's where you store your maths equipment. That's logical, like you store your clothes in a wardrobe and your food in your kitchen cupboard. That's logical. But don't expect the children to just do maths in the maths area. They're not going to. They're going to take your tape measures and your counting blocks. I mean, there was one year in my reception class, what are they called? The compare bear things? The little plastic bears?
Gosh, that brings back memories, yeah.
They spent an awful lot of time in cook pots in my home corner. Which was absolutely fine, because actually the children were counting them in. How many bears do we need to make bear soup? That kind of thing.
Nice.
I disliked them intensely anyway, so it was fine that they were there.
Fine that they were being cooked up into some treat for the children, yeah.
Oh, we've lost more, have we? Never mind.
Oh, did you not melt enough of them? So, yes, have storage areas where things are kept, like where all the writing equipment is or whatever. But don't insist that's where it stays. Like sand in the water. Of course sand goes in water and water goes in sand. Have you never been to the beach? They're not going to not do it.
So being realistic with it, I think,
I was going to say, I think that's a very sensible philosophy, because you're quite right. Obviously, you can put your resources in the same place, and it goes back to what we were saying about having the same continuous provision. If a child likes a resource, they know where to find it. Exactly. It's always in that box. Brilliant. Like, that's comforting to me. I know it's going to be there. I can't wait to play with my compare bears later. I'm going to go and find them.
I'm going to go and cook them, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm going to cook the lot of them. But yeah, that anticipation, that also the anticipation that the children will even understand that concept. It's like, oh, we've put all of the number cubes in this area because now you will do a maths. And these 4-year-olds are like, what?
But I'm cooking.
I'm very busy. I'm going to be the next master chef.
I want to take the number blocks in the garden because I want to see how long a line I can make with them.
I think it's exactly that point of like, well, I guess it can't possibly be maths because it's not happening in the maths corner.
That's exactly it. And that's what worries me. It's the same with themes and topics. The number of times people say our topic or our theme, for example, it's half term here this week, when we come back. By the way, I hope you appreciate it's Bank Holiday Monday here today.
Very true.
Oh,
Sue, working on a bank holiday.
I expect double time for this.
Oh, gosh.
So next week is like, after half term, we're doing this as our topic. I need to have stories, songs, pictures, artists. No, have a theme about beaches. But that's just one tiny little vehicle you can teach through. It's not the be-all and end-all.
And it reminded me a little bit of what Alice said in our very first episode, where she talked about that idea of also themes can be so useful, and you do need to use them to bring in some of the interests of some children to the interests of all.
Right.
And that's about your skill as an educator to make this so exciting that everyone wants in.
I would never have learnt about hydroelectric power if during a topic on water, 4-year-old Alex hadn't said to me, I want to know how water makes electricity.
Yeah.
And that was like 100 years ago before the internet, so we had to read about it.
Yeah. Find the right book in the right part of the right library.
Do you know what? I know we said we had to move on.
Go
Can I
on.
ask you one last thing?
You're in.
Yes,
Because you mentioned it just then about getting your room ready after holidays or after, the big summer holidays. And you've mentioned before about people doing their entire classroom ready for a new cohort of children in September. Can you say a little bit about that? What are your thoughts about that? Why it works, why it doesn't?
Keep it simple, because you don't know the children. You may have met them on a pre-visit, or they may be a brother or sister of somebody you've already taught, so they know your room. But keep it simple. The children need to learn how that environment works. And also the absolute classic with that, if you're getting a new cohort after a long holiday, is that you had your previous cohort you've trained. Your new cohort haven't got a clue what you like and dislike and what your words are and what languages you use. So keep it simple. Don't expect loads. I know that we now have this culture where children come in and are expected to do phonics on day one. That isn't going to work. You have children who may be very used to an environment like yours, but children who may have come in from childminders or being with the family. And it's like this whole new world of 29 other children and furniture I'm not used to, and what's this, and and I don't know where the toilet is, and when's lunch, and where's my mum gone.
Yeah.
You've got to spend at least the first week or so just playing with them and being friends and finding out stuff, and hopefully you might have even had a chance to do a home visit and maybe taken your class bear to the home visit so they know what to expect.
How much are you regretting picking up that bear now?
I'm not, he's lovely, he's my friend. He's coming to do the food shopping with me when we finish this.
In the little seat on the trolley, yeah.
Perfect. All All right, let's do it. I'm excited for this. This is a brand new section we're about to do.
This is a brand new segment, Sue. So, on previous episodes, we have got our guests to rank certain things related to what they're talking to us about.
Is this going to get me into trouble?
No.
Oh,
Maybe.
hope not.
Oh, I hope so.
Oh, okay. Controversial. So, I would like you to give me a potential Laven scale rating in the following scenarios. So, how you would feel, what your well-being level and what your involvement might be in these scenarios. Have I explained that properly?
Yeah, so we're going to give you a scenario, and you're going to give us how you think you would be on your Leuven scales for
Me
well-being and
personally.
involvement.
You
You
personally,
personally.
yes.
Yeah.
Good, excellent.
Very good.
So, the first one is being stuck in traffic.
Can I consult with my friend here?
Yeah.
Absolutely, phone a friend.
Phone a friend.
So that's a really interesting one. Years ago, I would have been a bit tense and a bit cross. However, when I was a local authority advisor, we did a couple of days training about coaching and mentoring. And somebody brilliant in that, and it stuck with me forever, said there are two circles. There's the circle of influence and the circle of concern. If you can't influence it, there's no point in being concerned about it.
Love it.
Interesting.
So actually, I don't mind being stuck in traffic. And these days, with the wonderful invention of the mobile phone, if you're stuck in traffic and you've had to turn your engine off, you can message ahead and say, I'm really sorry, I'm stuck.
Love it. Okay, so high
High
on the
well-being,
scale.
yeah.
Love it.
Okay, the next one is if you are writing a new book.
Have you been talking to the lovely Anna-Marie Kinnu at Routledge,
No.
I haven't.
who collared me at nursery or big day out last week? I mean, once I sit down and do it, and this has been on the back burner for about 5 years now, now I've said it out loud, I've got to do it, you see.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so we've got to hold her to it.
This is good. I like this.
You're
This
promising
is like
the
an
Tiny
absolute...
Chair podcast audience now.
So I'm a bit anxious about it, but once I get stuck in, I will be involved.
But I think writing is like that, isn't it? It's like sometimes it's great and sometimes it's the worst thing ever.
The feeling before you get started and thinking, oh, crumbs,
100%.
I've just got to do it. The next one is when you are delivering a training.
Years ago, when I started work as an early years advisor, I'd not really done trainings before when I'd been a class teacher. Well, I hadn't done any. And I used to get terribly anxious. And I used to have notes, which, of course, I soon gave up doing because I suspect you two know this. If you're trying to follow notes and present, you get completely lost.
Oh, yeah.
And you look back at your notes and think, oh, God, where am I? And throw them away.
This is easy because we get to look at our notes while you're talking, so it's sort of cheating.
Yeah. As soon as Mickle cuts away, we're...
Yeah, I know what you're doing. I can
with the
tell.
cuts.
I used to always get bothered as well if I got tongue-tied or flustered or couldn't remember the name of something. These days, I just laugh and say, oh, for goodness sake, what was that? I just throw it all away now and just get on with it and just be me. So in the olden days, I would have said, very anxious, very nervous, hated every minute of it. These days, I just get on with it.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. So high well-being and involvement.
Very good.
You'd have to ask my audience.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you ever thought about doing that as a sort of form of feedback? What their well-being and involvement levels were?
I haven't, but you know that's a really good idea.
You
can
got
add
something
that,
from
yeah.
us on this Bank Holiday Monday.
Courtesy of Tiny Chair Podcast. So the next one is meeting a new setting that you're going to support.
If I'm asked to go, I try to do like a prelim visit to get to know the people, because sometimes
That's
people
nice.
will email me and say, Sue, can you come and do some training on blah? But I don't actually know whether blah is what they really think they need,
Yeah.
or whether they're just giving me a headline.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I do like to try and do a general visit first to get to talk to people and find out what is really going there.
Yeah.
And then I can
like
tailor
that.
stuff in. If I'm doing one from cold, because it's not always possible to visit first, like if they're up north or somewhere like that. This is just an example, by the way, it's not real. I try to find out as much as possible. I try to get photographs, have a conversation, maybe a Zoom meeting, to get a feel for the people. But it can be a little bit daunting.
Yeah. If you don't know what you're getting yourself in for.
If you've never been in the environment before, you've never seen it before, you don't know any. Absolute classic. There's a nursery probably walking distance from here. And I happen to know the manager because she used to be one of my settings that I used to work with as a local authority advisor. And I'd never been there. And it was about a year ago, actually. She emailed me, could I come and do some training? They'd had someone let them down. Of course I can. So I went along there. It's only about 5 minutes drive from here. And I went in and I'd never been there before. I didn't know the team. And I sat down and introduced myself and told them, how I taught locally, blah, blah. And the young lady in the audience said, thought I recognised you. I was her teacher in reception class.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
And of course, there she is as a complete adult working in, and I'd only seen her mum the previous weekend. But that really put me off my stride.
Yeah, of course.
Gosh.
Because I suddenly thought, oh my God, this is weird. What is she thinking? Because really, the last time I'd worked with her, she was 5.
But it's like suddenly the audience changes and it's very strange when something
It
like that
really
happens.
threw me. It was fine, but it threw me completely.
And then the final one, Julia.
Oh, go on. The final one is being on the Tiny Chair podcast.
Well, that was frankly terrifying.
Oh, no!
No.
Were you nervous?
No.
It's just a chat with old friends, Sue.
Especially if I've got my bear and my 2 friends on the screen.
Nice. Well, we have a few more questions to finish off.
Yes.
Julia, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about the EY out of the box audit. So I'll let you talk about it.
So apart from the mistake we made at the beginning, I have been doing my research, and I was looking at some of your early years out of the box audits, and a question really, really caught my eye, and it was part of something to do with the Levin scales, but it was in the environmental audit, and the question was, how do the staff interact with each other? And I thought that was such a fascinating thing to audit in terms of an environmental audit. So I would love it, actually, if you could just say a bit about that. Why does that question matter? Why should we be looking at that as part of our environment?
Because children notice. We keep using that word notice, don't we? And children notice how the adults are with each other. It's fascinating for me to go in, especially if I've never been to that setting before, to see what the vibe is between the adults. Because you can, as adults, we can pick up, can't we, whether you would actively prefer not to be in a room with somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or there are particular people you'd rather not have at your dinner party. And children will pick up on that vibe.
Yeah.
So if the team members are having a bad day, or it is obvious that a particular team member is not particularly happy with another team member, it needs noticing and sorting. And we can't get on with everybody all the time, or with some people we can't get on with them ever. But if you are wanting a happy environment, you need to sort out your team so that it works. And if you are about to disrespect an adult in front of children, that's the other thing, talking above children's heads,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
that's disrespectful of the children.
Especially when it's about them. That's easily done, I know. I remember when... was it from Randolph Beresford?
It was Michelle, yeah. Who
And she was
brought this
explaining
up.
to us like that classic conversation of pickup time of, he's had an accident today,
yes.
sort of over his head, and it's like
That poor
they can
child
understand
knows.
what's going on. Yeah.
It's another tip for when you're a daddy.
Perfect. No, I know. We want to hear a little bit more about your out of the box consultancy and so on. Do a little plug at the end, but actually had one last more question before we jump onto that.
Yes.
Just a little bit, as someone who's worked a lot with the PVI sector, but also historically in reception classes and so on, there's obviously a big debate. There's always a debate about school readiness going on right now with the new targets that the government's setting of sort of 75% by 2028, whatever that means, of children being school ready. What's your sort of thoughts around the changes and your thoughts around school readiness in general and whether we're having the right debate?
No, we're not having the right conversations about it. You knew we were going to say that, didn't you?
I had a funny feeling.
Well,
We're missing the point big time. Last week they were talking about, in England, Bridget Phillipson, the school minister, was talking about grit. Children need more grit. I know that's like feeding budgies grit, but
No thanks.
if you stopped making 4-year-olds sit on chairs the minute they hit a reception class to do 45 minutes of phonics, we might get emotional wellbeing right.
Spot on.
So no, the school readiness debate, school readiness agenda is not where it should be. But look out for School Readiness Matters.
Wonderful. What a
We
great
could've-
question. I didn't even know that was going on. It's like I planned it.
If you look at LinkedIn, we've just started, Dr. Vicky Veal has just started advertising it.
Wonderful.
fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to take a look at that. Because
Cracking.
I've got lots of feelings and
But you
thoughts
have to
about
go,
that.
you've got to go shopping. So maybe we could just finish off by telling people where they can hear from you, how they can work with you, Sue.
Yes.
If they liked what they heard today and they want to do work with you, how can
Yeah,
they
where
get
can
in
they
touch?
find you?
The Teddy's just gone all soppy.
It's the commercial bit. That's why he's not interested. He's a socialist, Teddy. I get it. Yeah.
Socialist Teddy, that's a great one. Okay, so if you want me, you can find me on @DrSue22 on Twitter, which isn't Twitter anymore. Dr. Sue Allingham on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
My website, which is in the process of being revamped, which is EY Out of the Box.
Amazing.
We can put those in the description.
We'll
right?
put
We
them
can
in the
those
description.
Yeah, make it easier for people to find Sue.
Wonderful. Sue, thank you so much. That was such an amazing conversation, and it's been lovely getting to hang out with you and Teddy Edward today as well.
Well, let's do it again sometime.
Deal.
Yeah.
By the way, I forgot to say I wore the elephant dress because we were addressing elephants in the room.
Oh, I love it. I was wondering if the dress was Elmer adjacent. I like
It
it.
was kind of Elmer adjacent,
I
but
love
it's elephants in the room more.
Very, very
Lovely.
good.
Lovely.
Love it. Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Speak soon.
Well, what do you do? That was Dr. Sue. What did you think, Julia?
Loved the episode. Not sure about that.
Not sure about the rhyming.
No, I didn't love that, but I did love everything Dr. Sue had to say. It was brilliant.
She was great, wasn't she? What was your favourite bit?
I think when she was saying about getting down to the children's eye level, so when you're looking at your environment, don't look at it up here like an adult, look at it down there where the children are actually seeing it from. I thought that was
Such a
brilliant
good point.
advice.
And you made a good point about making sure that you notice the smells and the other sounds and so on as well, and how they're different from that level.
Absolutely. It's all.
It's like you know what you're talking about it.
Imagine that.
Indeed. But Julia, we've got a shout out this week, haven't we?
We absolutely do. So I'm super excited to let everyone know that Ruth Hearn from 20 Day Nursery got in touch, and she said that their apprentice Lauren has just finished her level 3 qualification.
Nice. Congratulations, Lauren. That's a big tiny chair round of applause.
A big tiny chair round of applause,
big
that's
tiny chair
right.
round of
It's
applause.
absolutely brilliant. Huge congratulations. It's a massive achievement getting qualified. Welcome to the early years.
Welcome to the early years indeed. And if you'd like to have your wins or shout outs on next week's pod, all you need to do is email us at tidychairpod@family.co.uk, or you can slide into our DMs or write us on Village. Really, any way you want to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, and maybe it could be you getting celebrated on next week's pod.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll see you next time.
Bye.